Congressman James Comer from Kentucky's 1st District, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
For starters, can you tell us a little bit about your district and the kinds of agriculture we might find in it?
Well, my district is very agricultural. That's the biggest industry in my district. It's primarily 35 rural counties in western and southern Kentucky. We have a very diverse agriculture economy there. Tobacco is still a major crop. Poultry, we have 5 poultry processors that are headquartered in my district, and thousands of growers scattered throughout the 1st Congressional District of Kentucky. We also have a lot of corn, soybeans, we have a lot of dairies and beef cattle. So it's a pretty diversified agricultural district. I came to Congress with agriculture as my #1 issue, and hopefully I can make a difference here and help the family farmers in my district.
And on that front, you're one of 12 new members of the House Agriculture Committee in this Congress. So with that in mind, what are some things that you want to accomplish during your time on that committee?
Well, first of all, we need to pass a farm bill that helps farm families. My priority has always been trying to help keep farmers on the farm and as well as help inspire the next generation of agriculture leaders. We've got to do everything we can to provide access to credit for beginning farmers and for farmers that want to continue the family farming operation. In order to do that, it's essential that we have a farm bill that provides protection and provides a strong crop insurance program to reassure our ag lenders that the business model will work. We all know commodity prices fluctuate significantly. So the Farm Bill is the one piece of legislation that we can pass in Congress that will make a difference for generations on the farm.
And you're a farmer yourself, correct?
I'm a farmer. That's my occupation. That's what I've always wanted to do. When I was growing up, my father and grandfather both owned a farm, and they kind of viewed that as a hobby, but that's what I wanted to do for my business. So I graduated from Western Kentucky University with a degree in agriculture. The day I graduated from college, I was at the local bank borrowing money to buy my first farm, and we've grown that operation over the years, but I've enjoyed farming. When I'm finished in Congress, whenever that will be, I want to go back to the farm and hopefully live happily ever after.
Now, once upon a time in this country, there were a lot more farmers in the legislative branch, even up into the executive branch. Do you think that's a problem, that there's less farmers actually taking part in the public policy process, or do you think there just needs to be a better understanding from those that are in the process of agriculture?
Both. I'm concerned that there are very few members of Congress that have ever farmed. Most members of Congress know a farmer or have a distant relative that had a farm and they went to that farm and once and had a good memory of that. But when it comes to policy, there are very few in Congress that actually understand the importance of farm policy. You know, trade is very important. That's the one issue that spooked some of my farmers across my district with the Trump administration. Some of the talk they feared would have a backlash and negative impact on trade. But I found Secretary Perdue and President Trump to be very understanding of the importance of trade and very willing to try to do everything we can to grow our export market. So I believe that we're on the right track from an administration. I believe that Congress has every intention of promoting and passing pro family farmer legislation up here, but hopefully I can play a role in that and try to make sure that we get a good farm bill, that we, when we renegotiate some of these trade agreements like NAFTA, and when we start trying to sign on with some bilateral trade agreements like the president campaigned on, that agriculture is front and center.
Mm-hmm. And in your previous life, before you were a member of Congress, a state legislator as well as the ag director in the state of Kentucky.
Yeah, I was a 6-term Kentucky state representative. I got elected when I was 27 years old. I guess I was 28 when I got sworn in. And Agriculture Committee was my main committee. I was a Republican, so we were in the minority at that time. Now, in the Trump election, it flipped. Republicans are in the majority now, but the whole time I was there, I was in the minority. But I was very active on the Agriculture Committee, very accustomed to working across the aisle in a bipartisan manner to get things done, because if you wanted to pass legislation, you had to obviously have Democrat support at that time. So had some success in that. Then in 2011, I filed for Commissioner of Agriculture, which is an elected statewide position. There are only 13 states that elect their ag commissioner, and Kentucky's one of them. I was fortunate in that election. I won. I served 1 4-year term as Commissioner of Agriculture. And then in 2016, my congressman announced he wasn't running again. Actually, in 2015, he announced it late of the fall of 2015. So I decided in 2016 that I'd like to come to Congress, and I put my name on the ballot, and here we are.
Now, when you served as the Ag Commissioner, you were the only Republican in an otherwise Democratic administration.
I was.
So what did you learn throughout that process about bipartisanship and about advocating for your priorities, but at the same time still trying to get something done?
Right. You know, it was very important to me to achieve. I think one of the biggest problems in Congress is you have members of both parties, Republican and Democrat, that come up here and they file bills that they know will never pass. They file amendments that they know will never pass, but they just do that so that when they fail, they can blame the other party and then go on the cable television networks and grandstand. And my business model, so to speak, has always been to try to actually achieve something. I don't care if it's a Republican idea or a Democrat idea, as long as it's a good idea and something that will help the people that I represent. So when I was Commissioner of Agriculture, I was the only Republican statewide elected official. I worked closely with the Democrat governor at the time, Steve Beshear. I worked closely with the First Lady, Jane Beshear, who was a passionate person in the horse industry. That's very big in Kentucky. As you know, it's one of the 5 major commodities in the state. Not in my congressional district, but more in the Lexington area. But worked very closely with her. Also worked closely with the Secretary of State on hunger eradication, a lot of food issues, Kentucky Proud issues. So I've got a record of working across the aisle, and I think that that's something that's important here. I don't mind voting on a pro-farm legislation bill that's a party line vote if I think it's the right thing. If it's just Republicans voting for it, that's fine. But if we have to work together, I think that's always better to work together, because agriculture shouldn't be a partisan issue. We have family farmers all across America. Some states are Democrat, some states are Republican, and at the end of the day, most farmers want to farm. They want to have an environment where the government's off their backs. They want to be able to be successful, and then they want to pass the farm to the next generation if the next generation has that desire. So whether it's a Republican or Democrat policy idea, I'll support it as long as I feel like it's going to help the family farmers in my district, in my state, and across America.
One of the policy ideas that you've really promoted, going back to your time as Ag Commissioner and now as a member of Congress, is the idea of doing more to cultivate industrial hemp.
Yeah.
So what's it like advocating? Obviously, it was a little more popular in Kentucky, but what's it like coming to Washington and advocating for one of the most specialized of specialty crops?
Right. Well, I think that people have learned a lot about industrial hemp up here in the last year. This has been an issue that's been floating around since we passed it in Kentucky in 2013. We were the first state to pass regulatory framework to make industrial hemp a legal crop, to make it a reality, and it's done very well in Kentucky. We have a lot of industrial hemp grown in my congressional district and the other 5 congressional districts in Kentucky. We have processors that have moved in. They formed companies, they formed startups. We have big companies that are wanting to diversify into industrial hemp. So industrial hemp's been a huge success story in Kentucky. Now you're seeing states like Wisconsin, Indiana, Virginia, and, so many states have replicated Senate Bill 50, which was the legislation that I passed when I was Commissioner of Agriculture to set up the framework. We've proven industrial hemp's economically viable. We've proven it's not a drug. So the next step is to begin the deregulation process. And that's what my legislation that I have in this Congress will begin to deregulate industrial hemp and treat industrial hemp like corn, soybeans, wheat, any other agricultural crop. Industrial hemp has no THC. That's the hallucinogenic effect that you get from smoking marijuana. Hemp and marijuana are 2 different plants in the same plant family. So that's kind of been a message that I've been trying to educate the congressman from the non-marijuana states, and I think that it's resonating. I believe we have overwhelming support to pass the bill in both the House and the Senate. So hopefully we'll get to vote on that bill in the next few months.
Mm-hmm. Going through the campaign process and now as you engage in dialogue with your now constituents, what were you sent to Washington to do?
I was sent to Washington to try to control spending, to bring some common sense. Most farmers have common sense. Most farmers know you can't spend more than you take in very many years. If you do that, they'll be selling your farm at the courthouse steps. So what we've had in Congress is, for the last 4 decades, is a Congress that come up here. They come up here and they continue to spend more than they take in. We have government programs that were obsolete 30 years ago that needed to be ended. But what you have is so much special interest involvement up here. It gets very difficult to pass anything. That's what happened with the healthcare bill. You had a lot of special interests come in, and they had problems with the bill. You're going to see that with our tax reform bill that we're going to be talking about now. There are going to be special interests come in that say, well, we can't support it because of this or that. I think people in my district, they've known me since I was in FFA and getting started in the farming business. They know that I'm not beholden to the special interests, and I'm going to do what I think's best, regardless of party affiliation, regardless of which special interest group supports or opposes the bill.
And I'll wrap up with this one. Just when you're not in Washington and when you're not working back home on your days off, as few and far between as they may be, what are some things that you enjoy doing?
Well, I would say I enjoy farming, but my brother and my dad would probably faint if I said that, because I haven't been on the farm, and I've been up here a lot since I got to Congress 11 months ago. But I love being on a tractor, love being outside. I also love spending time with my 3 small children and my wife. My kids are very active in sports, so I'm always throwing baseball, shooting basketball with them, and doing things like that. We like to kayak. I'm an outdoors person. I also like to golf. I know that doesn't fit the mold of a farmer, but I really enjoy playing golf. So those are kind of my hobbies. Anything that's outside, I pretty much enjoy doing it.
Congressman James Comer from Kentucky's 1st District, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.